So good morning, one and all. So it's today is the day 3 for the session 1. We have the speaker, Dr. Sunil Kumar. He is actually currently working as assistant professor at Atal Bihari Vajpayee Indian Institute of Information Technology and Management, Gwalior. Prior to this, he was associated with the Thapar Institute of Engineering and Technology, Patiala. As a visiting assistant professor, he completed his PhD from the Indian Institute of uh, Technology, Guwahati, in the area of image processing and computer vision in 2017. More specifically, his thesis work is on recognizing facial expression from multi-view arbitrary face images. He did his SAMTech from NIT Rourkela in the year 2012. His research interest including signal and image processing, computer vision, pattern recognition, soft computing, and artificial intelligence. So we are really thankful to sir that the sir accepted our request. So now I request to sir kindly uh, process the session.
Okay,
we are welcoming you, sir.
Thank you, Raghavendra. Can you see? Can you see the PPT?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. PPT is visible. Sir, make it full screen, sir.
Yes. Now I think it. Now
yes, yes.
Right.
Yes, yes. Now it's okay.
So first of all, good morning to all of you. Right. So this topic, right? The topic which I'm going to discuss is the topic is basically data analytics and exploratory data analytics, right? So the name seems to be very difficult, right? The name seems to be very difficult. Right? What actually it means, right? And what is basically it's important in our this FTP topic, that AI, ML, and DL, right? So we are basically the motive of this particular FTP is to build a model on top of data, right? So prior to this, I thought of how to basically let me plan this particular session. So what I thought of to start this session by asking some questions, right? So see what actually what questions that we need to ask, that what does this particular EDA means, exploratory data analysis means, basically means, and then why do we need this EDA for our this building a model, for example AI, ML, or DL models, right? And then how does it basically solves some of your problems while building AI, ML, or DL models, right? And then if you think let us say you wanted to build a model without this EDA, right, then what will be the impact, right? So looking to these few questions, right, so we will see that if you won't do this exploratory data analysis, and then if you're thinking that you let us say start building a model, then what kind of problem that you will face it, right? And then if you do certain analysis on your data, and then you will feel okay, now we can do, or let us say we can move to a particular model that we wanted to build, right? So let us say keeping in mind all these questions, let us go ahead, right? So let us before going to this particular topic, let us not forget to our objectives of AI, ML, and DL, right? So in a future lectures, right, or you study, we have looked a lecture on CNN and RNN, right? And later you're going to let us listen lectures on machine learning algorithms, right? So while listening those lectures, you keep in mind that they might be discussing that in describing the ML algorithms, our objective is to build algorithms or models, right? So that so that actually your system learns from data, basically, right? So your objective is to develop algorithms, right, that basically learns from data, so that it acts like a human being, right? So you are trying to build a system which basically mimics the behavior of human being, right? The way basically humans take a decision, right? You are allowing a system that let the system take decision by their own way, right? By learning the system, by learning through algorithms, right? And that algorithm basically learns from the data itself. So data is very crucial data is very crucial, right? So whenever you start learning a model, you look the data, basically, right? So data is there in your hand, right? So let us say before going to this particular things, let's ask a question that whenever you start building a model, then what actually you think, right? So when you start building model, right, what actually the step basically you follow, right? So basically, how do we start building a model, right? So you think about yourself. So I know, whenever if some of you basically, when you start building a model, let's say you start doing some research, then what actually you look? We basically collect data from various sources, right? So we start collecting data from various sources, maybe from different zones. I'm basically particularly in this session, or in few coming sessions, we are basically dealing with the images and signals, right? But this data may be from various sources, right? So the first step is to that you collect data, or let's say the data is there in your hand, right? So you assume that data is there in your hand. You think that from what sources the data is basically came to you, right? So data is the main thing. Now once the data is there, what actually you do, right? So being a expertise in machine learning or DL, right? Okay, this kind of data is there. You just pick up some models, right? And then you basically apply some model, right? But let us say you don't know about, you are not expertise in this particular area, and then you are basically what you do, let us say you pick up some model, right? So that model may be a deep learning based model or non-deep learning based model, right? When picking a model from, let us say the model is deep learning based model, do you really require a deep learning based model, right, which you wanted to fit on your data, right? So you first look the size of the data, right, the volume of the data, how much data is there with you, right? And then you think that, okay, whatever model that you have picked out, whether it will work or not, right? So you are basically picking the model, right? That may be the way you basically pick up the model, maybe in a heuristic in nature, right? So that may not be the correct way, right, to pick up the model, right? And then what you do, let us say you have picked out the model, and then what you do, basically you are using some optimization tool to learn the parameters of your model, right? So your model may be let us say a simple model, or let us say a slightly complex, or whatever model is there, right? So particularly deep learning based models are highly complex or highly non-linear in nature, right? And then you are basically using some optimization tool, you are learning the parameters of the model, right? And then once the learning is complete, what you do is basically you go for the testing the model performance, right? And then what you have done, so if the performance is good, then you are happy, right? Else what actually you are doing, that you go to step 2, right? So if your model performance is not good, then you go to the step 2. That means you pick up a new model, and then you learn the parameters, and then go for testing. So what do you think, that whether these steps, the way we have basically progressed, is the right way or not, right? So generally, might be knowing that, it's very clear that this particular approach is not a good approach for building a AI or ML or DL model. So then whenever you attend some session, right, then you think that whenever we especially you are picking a model, or you are trying to build a model, right? So you think that whether you have picked a model heuristically or no, blindly you have picking a model simply since that ResNet 50 actually is a very good model. So let us pick up the ResNet 50, and then you apply on data, right? So before building a model, before picking a model and that you wanted to apply on your data, you think a lot, and then otherwise you will be having a lot of problems. Right. So if this is not the correct way, what is the correct way to build a model on your data? Right. So the correct way. So the correct way is that you collect the data, right? You collect the data, and then what you do is basically you perform this exploratory data analysis on data in hand, right? So this is where actually I will stuck here, right? Because, right. And then once you do the EDA, right, this exploratory data analysis, right? Then based on the EDA analysis, whatever inferences that you will get on EDA, right, you choose, right, or develop a model, right? Once you have done the EDA analysis, once you have you have seen what kind of inferences that you are basically getting from the data, you pick up the model, or you choose a model, or you develop a basically model according to the inferences that basically your data represents, right? And then basically you develop, or you basically choose a model accordingly, right? And then you learn basically parameters, right? And then basically you go for the testing performance, right? You test your model, right? And then you see the chance of success is more. The chance of success is more because you have developed a model, you have developed your own model. That's what we call basically proposed model, right? Because the data may be anything, right? Data may be we don't know the data basically, right? Data is coming from which source, what are the characteristics of data, right? Without knowing the characteristics of data, how can you build a model basically, right? Without understanding the data, without what are the variables are there involved in your data, what kind of relation that basically they follows, right? The interrelationship between the variables, right? What kind of whether some kind of missing data is there or not, right? So whether the data is in a proper format or not. So without understanding the data, how we can basically go ahead, right? Let us assume that you have a data in which the variables are basically, let us say, linearly separable, right? So let us say you wanted to build a model, right, on top of your data, but assume that let us say the variables in your data is basically, they are basically linearly separable. And since they are linearly separable, why do we need to go for a highly complex model, right? So let us say you don't know about data, and then your data is basically linearly separable, right? And then you're picking a ResNet 50. Then what is the impact? So unnecessarily, you're basically picking a very complex model on a simple separable data, right? So many of time, you are basically stuck that whether do we need to go for a linear model or non-linear model, or what kind of model that you basically need to pick up, right? So if you have some analysis on the data in hand, then definitely it will help you to pick up a model, right? And then the task may be simpler for you, right? The idea is that whenever basically we pick up model, so the thing is that when you start building a model, this particular problem is basically a synthesis problem, right? So the thing is that the input data, right? The data is given to you, right? The data is given to you. And basically, the system is basically unknown. Data is basically input is given to you. So input is basically given to you, and then output, the system output is basically given to you, right? And then you need to find basically the system, the hidden system. So this kind of problem where the input data is given to you, and the system, which is basically the class level, sometimes you call basically class level in terms of, in case of classification problem, they are basically class level. Even in case of the regression problem, there are two kinds of problem that you might be, generally be occur basically, right? So whenever the output variable is basically continuous in nature, then with that class of problem is basically a regression problem, right? If they are categorical or discrete in nature, then we call it basically a classification problem. So the thing is that the input data is given to you, right? And then associated output, the variable is basically given to you. And then you need to pick up basically, you need to find the hidden system, which basically maps your input to the output, right? So let me generalize, tell you this kind of, in general, this kind of thing, this analysis, this kind of, right? So whatever it is, a classification problem or regression, you can think like this, right? So the thing is that if you have done some analysis of input data, then definitely you will come to know that your task, because you have analyzed the data, you have understood the data, and then accordingly you are basically picking this particular model, the characteristics of this model. Picking this particular model is very, very important, right? Because what you want is basically you wanted to generalize, you wanted to capture the big picture of the data, right? You neither go to in a underfitting zone, neither you want to go in a overfitting zone, right? So you wanted to come up with a model which is basically captures the big picture of the data or overall picture of the data, right? So in that case, if you do this EDA, if you do this exploratory data analysis prior to building a model, even if you fail, you will be happy, right? Even if you fail, right? Even if you fail, you will be happy because it will give you some other inferences from the data, right? Right? It will give you some other inference of the data. Right. So you follow this particular approach. Whenever you have a data, you first do the EDA, you perform some EDA analysis on the data, and then accordingly you choose the model. If you think that deep learning based model is required for building a model on top of your data, you pick up the deep learning based model. Otherwise, you go for the simpler model, because there are so many constraints of deep learning based model. You require a huge amount of data to learn the model parameters, because of the millions, you require to learn a million number of parameters, right? So millions of parameters are there, and you know that if you wanted to learn a model having millions of parameters, then at least you require to 10 millions of data, or 10 millions of sample to learn those millions of parameters. Otherwise, what will happen? You are basically going to overfit the data, right? So overfitting case will be arises if you won't have the sufficient amount of data, right? So let us see that this is a particularly efficient approach to build a model whenever you wanted to try to build any AI or DL based model, right? So that is what it is basically written. What basically the EDA means is basically the critical process of performing initial investigation of data, right? So you first perform some initial investigation of data. You first do some analysis on your data, right? That's what this case. This is the task or kind of pre-processing task before building a model on top of your data, right? So while doing this particular EDA, you will basically come up with various aspects of your data, right? So we will see what are the aspects of the data. But before that, let us see that what kind of what this EDA will help you to discover from the data. So basically, if you do the EDA, what you will be able to know is basically you will be able to discover the patterns in the data, right? So that's what we are trying. Whenever you basically if you discover the pattern, if you know the what kind of pattern the data basically follows, then it will be right. It will be help you that how this the task will be, what kind of things that you have to do, what kind of features that you have to select it, right? So it will help you to understand the pattern in the data, right? Right. It will also help you to find is there any outliers. Is there any outliers in the data, right? So before going for further processing, you have to ensure that whether some outliers is there in your data or not, right? If some outliers are there, then you try to remove it, right? Or if not, you try to handle it in some intelligent way, right? So otherwise, what will happen if you have some outliers in your data, and then you're trying to let us say learn a very complex or nonlinear model, then it will try to bias towards those outliers. Might be knowing, right? So if you have data having some outliers and you're trying to build a highly complex nonlinear based model, then because of this nonlinearity in your model, that model will try to bias towards those outliers, right? So the thing is that it won't generalize your data, right? So even though you will get a high training accuracy in that case, because you have picked a very highly nonlinear model, right? And then your model may pass through each and every training examples. In that case, your training accuracy may be very high. However, if you go for the testing case, your testing accuracy will be very, very poor, right? So to understand whether your data is having some outliers, all right, so you try to remove them, or you try to handle them in a more intelligent way, right? So otherwise, if not, what you do, you don't go for a very a highly complex nonlinear based model, because your objective is to generalize the data, not fitting a very highly or high very high on complex curve, right? Now, right, to explore relationship among different variables in the data, because your data maybe have so many variables, right? So like in a more general case, particularly in image, let's say you have millions of variables, right? So those millions of variables, how they basically interact with each other, what is the relationship that one variable basically with the other variables? So how, if you don't know the relationship between the or dependency of one variable with respect to some other variable, right? So if you know, it will help you to understand what kind of curve that you want to fit over those set of data, right? So this EDA will tell you how to basically get the relationship between different variables in the data, right? Other thing is that, let's say to clean the data with appropriate statistical approach, right? So if you do this EDA analysis, it will help you to clean the, let us say you have a noise in data, particularly let us say different kinds of noise, right? Whether you need to take some assumptions of your data, right? So you maybe wanted to take some assumptions before building a model. So this kind of thing basically you require before building any AI or DL based model, right? So this particular topic, basically this EDA, basically give you the idea of why whenever you build a model, what kind of preprocessing that you need to do before going to the building, for building model, right? Right. So this basically, this against that's what I told you. There's so many issues with the data that your data may not be in a proper format, right? So whenever you have data in your hand, the data may not be in a proper format. So you first convert them in a proper format, right? If let us say because since the data is coming from the various sources, right? The data may be of audio type, video type, or no image or whatever text, right? So whatever data is there coming from various sources, right? So that data may be having some missing values, right? So let us say you have a data having so many variables, right? And then for a particular row, the so many values of those variables are basically missing. Then how do you basically tackle those cases, right? Maybe let us say few thousands of variables or thousands of values are basically missing for different variables. Then how do you basically handle those cases, right? So the thing is that your data, if your data doesn't have any missing value, then of course you can go ahead. But in a real situation, right, in many applications, you will see that your data maybe consists of many missing values, right? So if you have missing values, there's one of the challenging tasks that you don't basically, let us say you wanted to build up a deep learning based model, right? So and you require simultaneously a huge amount of data, and then what you have seen that because of this missing values, because of your missing values, if you fit assume some arbitrary values to replace those missing values, then you may go to the erroneous results or erroneous kind of things, right? So the thing is that whenever some missing values are there, you don't want to lose the data, right? We want to retain those values, but you have to go for a particular techniques through which how can you basically replace those missing values, right? So if you understand that how this particular one variable basically relates with some other variable, if you have some strong relationship, right, or what kind of relation that is, that the missing variable corresponding to the missing value basically associated with some other variable, then you will be able to predict, or you will be able to fill those missing values, because we don't want to lose even a single data from our data, right? So because data is very, very important, we require a large amount of data to come up with a good model, right? So given a missing value, how do basically we handle it, right? And then how do we basically tackle the outliers, right, noise and so on, right? Even if let us say you have data, right, including it may include so many of unimportant features, right? So if you have unimportant features, you can go for the feature reduction techniques, right? So there are so many feature selection or reduction techniques are available, right? So you can pick up them. However, before that, even you can understand that what are the features that we wanted to pick up for our building our model, or which are the variables which are basically important while building a particular model, right? So basically, and so on. So they are basically, these are basically some of the key issues with the data, right? And then basically we will we'll do this exploratory data analysis. That means we will try to extract some key features from the data, or we try to understand that how this one variable basically related with the other variable, right, in order to rectify such issues and make it ready for future analysis or further analysis, right? So before building any model, I request you all to first do some understanding to some analysis on data to understand how one variable basically follows other, or how this or whether there is any kind of missing value are there, how to basically fill those values and so on, right? And then you will start building a model basically, right? So this particular ADA analysis does not complete until unless we go for a case study, right? So because we right now I cannot take any data set, right? So particularly which have millions of variables, right? So let's take a case study, right, and assuming some data set, right, and then perform some ADA analysis, right? Let us say you wanted to build a model on top of this particular data set, which is basically a hypothetical data set, right? So basically Toyota data set, right? having some features of the cars, right? And then let us say one wanted to build a model on this data set, right? So you, before looking this data set, let's first the question asked basically that what kind of model basically wanted to build on top of this data set. Definitely, if you before doing anything, if you pick any model, it may not be suitable for whatever model you basically pick up, right? The first thing is that you look the data and then you see what are the variables are there in the data, right? So whether all the variables are required or not, right? Or whether is there any kind of missing values or not, right? So you see the first two columns, right? So index and ID, they basically, if you see the ID is 1 2 3 and so on, they, if you won't do any pre-processing or not pre-AD on this kind of data, then even this ID becomes a feature of your it becomes a feature, right? So do you think really this ID being a feature is required for building a model? So definitely I believe it's not, right? So like this, and then you think this model, right? So you think this model, even this model number or this model is basically not required while building a model, right? And then you see this the price variable, right? So you have basically the price variable, then you have this age, you have age variable, right? So you have price and then you have basically age and so on. You see some of the missing values, right? So you see some of the basically because of this wrong entry, right? Because of this wrong entry, you have some question marks in the data set, right? Some double question marks in the data set. You have some non-value, not a number, right? So there may be some missing values in your data, right? So it's a practical situation, right? Practical scenario that whenever someone has created database for you, or somehow you have gathered data from some sensors, right? There may be some erroneous values which are entered in your data or which are basically available in your data, right? So one of the important question is that how do we basically replace such erroneous data, right? And how do we basically fill some such missing values in your data, right? So the idea is very common, right? So if you go for the before building a model, if you go for EDA, then you may remove such unimportant features which are there in your data, right? And you can replace those question mark and double question mark or non-value with some appropriate value, doing some statistical analysis on data, and then you go for building a model. So I'm not going to discuss any building because so many expert lectures are there. They will be going to this they will be discussing so many machine learning based model, and they will be basically building their models on top of some kind of data. But the question is that whenever you build a model, being a researcher, or you just think that what kind of model we need to fit on, right? So before that, you need to go for such analysis, right? So you will see all these skills. So let us say all these variables are basically I took this particular I have implemented all these things for you, right? So you can see I will share this Python code for this particular analysis to you, right? So let us say there's simple command, right? So you wanted to see that what are the variables that are there basically in your data, right? So you just write your data frame dot columns, right? It will give you the number of variables which are there or which are basically associated with your data set. So you have to see that number of variables which are basically almost 36, 34 if you count them, right? The number of variables are there to this particular data set, right? So I believe that all the variables may not be important. As I told you, this ID, then model number, and then some of the, let's say, this MFD year, right? So manufacturer year may not be important for our application, or whatever application basically which you basically wanted to build, right? If you go for, let us say, image case, right? So in case of image, if you have, then let's say MNIST data set, which is very common data set, right? So you see these are basically 1+1. These are basically labels, right? So these are basically labels, and corresponding values are basically like this, right? So even you can see that how this particular the one pixel or one image is basically related with the other image, right? So so many things we can do it here. But let us focus on this particular data set, which is Toyota data set, and try to do some EDA analysis on this data set, so that we will be able to come to know that what kind of model that we wanted to, or we can go for building a model on top of this particular data, basically, right? So let us say if you do some analysis on this particular data set, let us say you see what are the basically variables and how many missing values are there, what are their types, right? So you go for this simple Python instruction, that data.info, that basically gives you a lot of information regarding your data, right? So they are basically, for each variable there are 1436 entries are there, right? And out of this 1436 entries, you see that in case of price variable, right, in case of price variable, there's some missing value, right? So because you have only 1335 number of entries, and other entries are basically missing value. So how many missing values are there corresponding to each and every variables? If you write this particular instruction, you will be able to know that how many missing values are there in your corresponding to which variable. So I have given you a snapshot of the things. Will show you those, even the code will give you, right? So the idea is that what about the other entries, right? So since you have only this much entries out of 1436 entries, so what about other entries, and how do we basically fill those such entries, right? Right. So you see, being a statistician, one of the simple approach is that whenever you wanted to fill some missing entries in your data set, the very common approach is that you go and fill them with their mean value, right? So corresponding to a variable, right? Whenever some missing values are there, you can fill them with their mean value. So does it correct, right? So whenever you trying to replace those missing value with their mean value, does it correct, right? The question is, that is correct, right? So you can also go for, let's say you don't have any idea, then you can go for the mean value. Otherwise, let's say you go for the median value, right? So whenever, let us say, assume that your mean and median, they are very close to each other, that means you don't have the outliers, right? So if you have outliers in your data, definitely the mean value will be higher as compared to the median value, right? So although those are basically give you the center tendency of your data, right? You go for the median value and the mean value, and then you look, let us say you have the 10 observations, and then a particular data or particular sample point is consisting of very high value, right? Definitely the mean value will become very high, right? And then however the median value will be still give you the good standard tendency about the data. So whenever you have the outliers in your data, then you go for the median value, right? Otherwise, if you just look the variable and you see how the mean and medians, whether they differ by a large number, right, or differ by a small number. If a small number, you go with the mean value, right, or you go with anyone, whichever you want it, right? But I believe, okay, this two approach is very, very simple, right? So you can replace those missing value with the mean value or median value, that is okay. But do you have some other approach, right? Do we have some other approach to fill those missing values? This is one of the a basic a good issues with this data, right? So because this missing data, right? So one of the approach is that you estimate the density, right? You go with the probabilistic approach. You find the approximate the data with the some density function, and then you extract the data from that density function, and then you replace that missing value with that particular value, right, coming from that particular estimated density function, right? Other approach, other approach is that you look that particular variable, and then you find the one variable in your data set which is highly related with that particular variable, and then what you do basically, you use some approach, right, to fit a curve, right? Because you know that which variable are you first look the correlation between that particular variable with some other variable, right? You do the this correlation analysis with one variable with some other variables, and then you plot basically, right? And when you find that this particular variable related to some other variable in a some linear fashion or some non-linear fashion, then you fit a curve, right, depending upon their relationship, and then you basically estimate some value, right? You estimate some value and then fit that particular value to your missing value. So this fitting approach can also be used to fill those missing values, right? In case of let's say the categorical data or categorical variable, you can go for the mod value, right? So these are some of the approach that you can use basically to fill those missing values in your data, right? So some of you we will discuss more, but this is the basic idea of doing this. How do we basically fill those missing values? Let us say even though I told you that you have to fill those missing value with the mean value or median value, you see how the basically several statistical characteristics of your data by simply writing a simple Python code. The data.describe will describe the each and every variables in your data, right, with some several statistical characteristics. For example, this count variable tells you the number of the entries, the number of entries which are there in your basically the data, right? So the 1335 is the one number of entries in the price variable, and then this particular tells you the mean value. This a particular row tells you the mean value of each and every variable, right? So you see the mean value is around 10,621, and then you see the median value. Where is the median value? So this particular this what is called basically the 5-number summary, right? So this 5-number summary of data is very important things which give you a lot of information about the data. So we'll discuss this 5-number summary as well, right? So what do you mean by this mean? This gives you the minimum value which are there in your data, right? And then this tells you what is the maximum value in your data, right? This 25 percentile is basically corresponding to the first quartile. What is quartile we call it, right? This 50% or 50 percentile we basically call it second quartile, and then the 75% or percentile we what we call it basically the third quartile. So basically the 5-number summary of a data basically indicates to you the 5 things, right? So it gives you the minimum value which are there in your data, the maximum value, and the 3 quartile which indicates you the 25% 25 percentile, which indicates you basically the 25 basically the data value, and the almost 25% of the data is basically less than that particular data value. So in your data set, maybe a particular corresponding to the price variable, there may be this particular data value which is 8,250, right? So this data value you can think of that 25% of the data is less than equal to this particular data value, which is 8,250. Likewise, you can see for other variables as well, right? Even this gives you the speed of the data, right? So this standard deviation gives you the speed of the data. What is the speed of this a particular variable, right? So this basically tells you, this particular description tells you a lot of things about the data, right? So before doing an analysis, you just have a look on this kind of data, right? So let us see this 5-number summary tells you, gives you the 5 informative things: the minimum value, the first quartile, right, the second quartile, and third quartile, and the maximum value. Even this particular 5-number summary will help you to detect outliers in your data, right? So we will see that how this 5-number summary will help us to detect the outliers in the data. How do we basically say that whether the data is having the outliers or not, right? So the simple definition of this percentile is basically, we call it that 100p. P is basically the number, a real number, right? We can take a, let us say for if you take p equal to 0.25, that corresponds to this q1, right? So it corresponds to q1. And then if you take a p equal to 0.5, that means the 50 percentile corresponding to q2. And likewise, if you take p equal to 0.75, corresponding to third quartile, right? So it basically tells you the data value. This 100p percentile is basically the data value, right? Having at least 100p% of the data are less than that value, right? So that's what I told you, that it means that if you have this data value 8250, this data value corresponding to the first quartile, it tells you that 25% of the data in price variable is less than equal to this particular data value, which is 8250. Likewise, you can think that in case of this 50% of data is less than this particular value 9750, right, value. And this particularly the second quartile is basically use your median value, right? So this second quartile, this q2 or 50% 50 percentile of your data basically gives you the median value. So here is the median value, right? So you see here in case of the mean value, which is around 10,621, and then median value, which is around 9,750. So they are almost close. Right? So there's no much deviation, right? So you can think of that. Okay, since the mean and median value, they are very close to each other. Your data is okay, no problem. As compared to this, with respect to the outliers. Right. Right. So let us take an arbitrary data set and then try to find this all these parameters. So let us assume an arbitrary data set, right? So consisting of the 40 samples, right? So there are 40 samples. So we took this particular right analysis. So let us assume that you have a data. Let us, it may be corresponding to price variable or some other variable, right? And right. So number of observations are, which is basically let us assume that there are 40 number of observations are there. What you do basically, you arrange the data in basically the ascending order, right? So you arrange them in ascending order, and then you basically pick the value. Let's say the pick up the value of p equal to 0.25, right? So you find the value of np, which is equal to 10, right? So what is the value? Is basically 10, right? So you basically find whether it is integer. If it is let us say if it is even number, let's say for p equal to 0.25, the np value is basically 10, which is basically even number. Then you go for the even number, the 10th position, and then the next one, because while finding the median, right, you know how to find the median, right? So if it is the odd number of sample, you take the pick up the mid value, right? If it is the even number of sample, then you take the average of the middle values, right? So if it is basically even, then you take this sample, the 10th sample and the 11th sample, and you take the average. The average becomes 64.5. That value, this particular value, data value, is basically indicating you the 25 percentile. That means the Q1 value. This one is basically the Q1, right? The first quartile value, the data value is basically 64.5. Likewise, if you say the p equal to 0.5, right? That gives you basically the Q2 value. So this is your Q2 value. Likewise, this one is basically your Q3 value, right? So basically, so these three numbers basically, this Q1 value, which is 64.5, this Q2 value and Q3 value. By using these three values and the minimum and maximum value, you can basically plot the basically the box plot, right? So it's basically it's very common way to see the box plot of corresponding to any variable. Even your results, whenever you basically analyze your results, you plot your results in terms of box plot, which tells you that how basically your results basically vary, right? So if you this particular area, this interquartile region, which is basically the Q3 minus, this is Q3, this is one is basically Q2, and this one is basically indicating Q1. So this tells you the minimum value. It indicates the minimum value corresponding to a particular variable. Then it indicates the first quartile value, the second quartile, which is corresponding to the median value, and then basically you have the third quartile value, which is corresponding to the 75 percentile of your data, right? And then you have basically the maximum value, right? So this 5 entries basically tells you the 5 number of a particular five number summary, what we call it basically. So you can do for all the variables. So let us take our case study, right? To come up with our own database, right? So we basically dealing with this our Toyota data set, right? So let us assume that you have basically you use this NS, this box plot, right? So NS is basically corresponding to the Seaborn library. So we have basically included the Seaborn library to plot the box plot or this 5 number summary with respect to any variable, right? So we have assumed that y-axis is basically the price variable, and then x-axis as a fuel type. So basically there are a fuel type. You will see the particular variable, it basically takes the 3 value, right? So it basically tells you that whether your car is of diesel type, fuel type as diesel, or whether your car is of fuel type as petrol or CNG type, right? So you see by looking this the box plot, it tells you a lot of things, right? So you see particularly in case of petrol, the price variation is very small, right? So the variance of the price is basically small here, right? However, you see the outliers. So this samples, these are basically the outliers. So the outliers tells you that while plotting the box plot, right, or the 5 number summary with for a particular variable, right? So whenever any data point is out of the range from the 1.5 times of the interquartile range, right? So what is interquartile range is basically IQR is basically the Q3 minus Q1, right? So this is this Q3 and then Q1. If you take the difference between Q3 and Q1, what you basically get is basically what we call is basically the interquartile range. So if any data point is out of bound from this the 1.55 times of this interquartile range, right? So let us say the minimum value, this minimum value is corresponding to q1 minus 1.5 times this interquartile range, and the maximum value is q3 is basically corresponding to sorry, this maximum value is corresponding to this q3 plus 1.55 times of this interquartile range, right? So if any data point is basically out of bound from this particular two data values, then those data point will be considered as an outlier. So you see, in case of this in case of this petrol fuel type, there's so many vehicles which are having the higher price, right? So they may be considered as outliers, right? However, in case of diesel, you see the number of outliers is less. However, and in case of the CNG, there is no outliers, right? So there may be the okay, the price may be okay. So that's what it is. Basically, it tells you that in this particular area, this interquartile range is basically the Q3 minus Q1, whereas this yellow line, basically the mid line, is what is called basically the median value, right? And then you see if your data point is here, right, which is lower than this the minimum value, which is Q1 minus 1.5 times the interquartile range, then such data points will be considered as outliers. So whenever you start building a model, right, so you look that whether your data consisting of any outliers or not. If outliers are there, you try to handle them in a way that you pick up don't go for a very highly non-linear based model, right? But otherwise it will try to work with your data model, right? So because if you have outliers in your data and you are picking a very highly complex model, because of a large number of parameters, you will try to tune your model towards the outliers, right? And because of that, you will not able to get a very good testing accuracy, right? So you try to handle them. Don't go for a very complex model. You try to manage with the moderate model, right? Neither too complex nor too simple, right? Because you wanted to wanted to generalize the data, right? So don't forget the objective of your model of task, right? So likewise, you can also detect the outliers by using this 5-number summary, right? You see, even this this particular this approach will tell you, this 5-number summary with respect to some other variables. So you can also include in apart from this price and fuel type, you can also analyze the data with respect to some other variable. Let us say the automatic. So it basically takes two value. So 0 tells you this the manual gearbox. This 0 tells you the manual gearbox, and 1 tells you basically the automatic, whether the car is of automatic gear type, or whether the car is of basically the manual gear type, right? So you see here that again it tells you the even in let us say the petrol type. So right, so you have basically this the manual gear type, and then this particular indicates the basically the automatic gear type. So basically you can see how this particular analysis goes. Some other variable, let us assume that, let us say you go for the frequency table, right? So you have some other thing that we need to see on your data before going for your building a model, right? For example, you see the frequency analysis, the frequency distribution of each and every variable, right? So you see whether your data is basically balanced or not, right? So before going to building a model, you need to confirm that whether the data is of balance or not, right? So if you have certain variables which are certain a certain number of rows corresponding to a large number of on a category, and then you have few number of categories corresponding to a low number of data, then in such case there may be a problem, right? So you try to handle in a careful way, right? So it tells you that most of the cars with this particular data set, right? So if you go with the building a model with this fuel type versus let us say the car, depending on the what variable you are basically picking for building a regression problem or being a classification problem, right? So if you pick up this fuel type, then you see most of the entries are basically of a petrol type, right? So definitely it will create a problem if you try to pick up this particular variable with respect to some other variable, and then you are picking you're trying to build up a model, right? Another important thing is that, let us say you go for the frequency distribution of one variable with respect to some other variable. Definitely you need to understand the data in a probabilistic manner, right? So that probabilistic manner tells you that, let us say you go for the frequency distribution of let us say the variable automatic, which basically takes two values, 0 and 1, right? And then the fuel type, which takes you the three values, diesel, then petrol, and then basically the CNG value, right? So this if you wanted to see the the frequency distribution of this automatic type with respect to this fuel type, this graph tells you this particular command, which is find as the cross tab, basically gives you a lot of things, right? Here basically it gives you the frequency distribution of these two variables, right? So it is what it tells you this, that there are 155 cars of fuel type diesel, and they are of basically the manual gear type. They are basically of manual gear type. Whereas there is no car having the fuel type which is basically diesel, right? And then they are basically they have basically the automatic. There is no car which is of automatic, right? Automatic gear and having this fuel type as diesel, right? Even if you see this in this column, right? So there are basically the number of cars which is of basically the manual gear type, as well as they are of petrol fuel type, right? So this kind of analysis from the data, basically, it's it's very easy to understand, right? So you see this kind of analysis. One more important thing is that, many a case when you basically do analysis, or you do start building the model, right? So the one of the important thing is that you look the joint probability distribution, right? So once you know the joint probability distribution, it gives you a lot of inferences about the data, right? So many analysis can be performed by looking the joint probability of even two variables or even more than two variables, right? So how do we basically we basically perform this joint probability distribution? I believe that I'm not going to for the mathematical description of joint probability distribution, right? But once the probability density function of a particular variable, or let's say a sequence of variables is basically a number of variables is known to you, you have basically all the information related to that particular variable, right? So joint distribution may be for two variables, and it may be for multiple variables in your data set, right? So let us say have a simple command, right, through which you can have the joint probability distribution of your data, or a number of variables in your data, and then from that you have some inferences regarding your data, right? So you simply use the cross tab command, right? Still once again the same this cross tab command is basically used, but the thing is that you add another instruction or another line, that normalize equal to true, right? If you won't use this normalize equal to true, it will simply give you the frequency table, right, of joint frequency table. But if you use the normalize equal to true, it basically normalize the data points, right, and give you the joint probability distribution, assuming that the random variables corresponding to the automatic and random variable corresponding to fuel type, they are basically independent. They give you the joint probability distribution, right? So it basically tells you the probability, gives you the probability value, right, and tells you that what is the probability that a car is of let us say the diesel type, having the gear type as manual, right? So the probability is basically 0.107939, whatever value, right? It tells you the probability that a car is of diesel type, as well as the gear type is of manual, right? You see this particular this 00 tells you that there is no car, right? There is no car having the fuel type as diesel, as well as the gear type as automatic, right? So there is no car having the diesel as fuel type as diesel, as well as the gear type as automatic. Whereas you see the most of the cars is basically having is of petrol type as fuel type as petrol, and they are basically of manual type. So this basically gives you the probability value, right, through which you can understand the one variable, how it is related with the other variable, right? So this kind of this joint distribution will even if you can add some more variables here, right, to see the joint distribution of two or more variables even, right? And then you, based on that, you try to build a, if you wanted to pick up any probabilistic based manner model, you wanted to assume some assumptions on your data, you just look this joint probability distribution, and then accordingly you see whether what kind of inferences that you can extract from this data, right? No, one of the more important things that how do we basically calculate this marginal probability. Once you have this, let us say the joint probability distribution, right? Many a time we basically wanted to find out the marginal probability distribution, right? So given a joint distribution, let us say you have two random variable, let us say the x and y, right? And then you wanted to find the marginal probability density function corresponding to x only. Then what you do basically, you integrate with respect to y, right? With respect to y, right? And then you will get the marginal probability density function. So you can go to the mathematical equation, but let us say I'm not going for mathematical equation, but let us assume that you have the x corresponding to the automatic x random variable corresponding to automatic, and then y is as a random variable with respect to this fuel type, right? And then basically we wanted to find the marginal probability density function by assuming that the x, which is basically the what is this marginal probability density function with respect to x and y. So let us say what is there basically f of x and f of y. So y is very random variable, and let us say you have f x comma y and then x comma y. So let us say this is basically what is called the joint probability density function, and this is what is called basically the marginal probability density function, right? So by using a simple by using a simple command, by simply add a one more line, this margin equal to true, it will give you the marginal or marginal probability density function, right? So this particular value they basically indicates you the marginal probability density value, right? Marginal value, right? This if you sum them, that sum becomes equal to 1. You know us. This is the characteristic of probabilities, right? Even you, if you want to understand, if you want to see the conditional probability density function, that means given a particular random variable, how do you basically find the probability of some other variable, right? So that's what we call it is conditional probability density or distribution, right? So let us say given let us say the given instead of using normalize equal to true, what you do basically with respect to what, let us say the given the car, whether the car is basically automatic or is of manual gear type or automatic gear type, what is the probability that the car is of different fuel types, right? So that's what if you indicate here normalize equal to index, index is corresponding to this automatic, right? So the thing is that let us assume that given the car is of manual gear type or automatic gear type, what is the probability that they basically come up with the fuel type of CNG and diesel or whatever, so right? So this given you see this particular command gives you the conditional probability distribution function, right? So it tells you, for example, let's assume this particular, what it tells you that what the probability that a car is of CNG type given the car is the car gear type of basically the manual gear type, right? So this number indicates you that what is the probability that the car is of petrol fuel type given the manual given the gear type as manual, right? So if you sum them, the row sum becomes here. In case if you assume that if you assume normalize equal to index, which is basically the corresponding to the automatic, the row sum becomes equal to 1, right? But you can also think of that the fuel type may be given to you, and then you wanted to find that what is the probability that the car is of manual gear type or they may be of automatic gear type, right? So by simply changing the normalize equal to column, you will be able to get the conditional probability distribution given the car is of manual gear type or automatic gear type. What is the probability that they will be of reverse approach, right? So that's what we have done it here, right? So let us say assume the normalize equal to column. So given the fuel type that fuel type may be of CNG or diesel or petrol, what is the probability that the car is of maybe automatic gear or the manual gears, right? So here if you see you just try to write the mathematical and then try to interpret them in a more clear way, right? So here basically the column sum will be equal to 1, right? So one of the more characteristics is that right, we should not forget that before understanding the data event, right? So one of the more important characteristics is that you look the correlation of one variable with respect to some other variable. That is one of the more important aspect, right? So the thing is that, from the concept of correlation, right? We know that whenever this kind of relation follows, right? So it indicates to you that whenever if you increase one variable, other variable also increases, right? So if they follow this kind of a straight line, that means they are basically perfectly positive correlated, right? So what we call it that the variables are basically perfectly positive correlated. They basically have positive correlations, right? Even if you have this kind of slightly scattered data, right? But however, if you increase one variable, this variable one and variable two may be any variable in your data set, right? So you have to do such analysis for each and every variables which are there in your data, right? So before prior to building any model. So if you have some slightly scattered data, right? So where even though you see the variable one increases, the variable two also increases, so they are not perfectly correlated, but of course they have basically they are basically high positive correlation. That means they are highly correlated, right? Right. So let us say even if you have this kind of the correlation in your data, right, for any two variables, and then you wanted to build a model on top of this, right? So why do we know if you have such a relation, and then you, before understanding this relationship, you have picked a very highly nonlinear based model, right? So if you pick up a highly nonlinear based model, that your model will be something like this, right? So without understanding the relationship between the variables, if you pick up any heuristic based model, then you may lead to a very highly complex model which may not give you which may not be suitable for your application, right? So but if you see the relationship, they are simply follow a approximately a linked relationship. So instead of going for a such a non-linear based model, better to fit a line here, right? Better to fit a line which basically tells you, or which basically captures the useful information of your data, right? Even this case here, right? So they are basically a low positive correlation, because they are not that much they are not related, right? In this case, whenever the data is basically scattered over the regions, right, like this, right, that means they don't have any relation, right? They are not related, right? In that case, they are basically independent, or you see whether they are what kind of model that you have this such things, right? So if you have data something like this, right, or you see whether you have problem of classification or regression, and then let us say some of them may fall. Let's say some of them are belongs to one category. Let us say let us say this one belongs to one category, and this the data points belongs to one category, right? And then you look basically, if you have data of something like this, let us say this belongs to one category, and this belongs to another category, right? Then definitely you need to go. You cannot learn a linear model here, right? You cannot learn a linear model here, because if you're trying to learn a linear model here, then you won't be able to get a good testing accuracy, right? So definitely you have to go for a non-linear based model, maybe a deep learning based model, or maybe any artificial neural network based model having a number of hidden layers, right? Because without adding any hidden layers, you won't be able to capture the non-linearity in your data, right? So that's what many times the question comes that in the last layer of your deep learning based model, basically what you do basically, right? So you see your deep learning based architecture, right? So you have a deep learning based architecture, then you have basically a fully connected layer, right? So while you are connecting a fully connected layer, right? So you have one fully connected layer, and then simply you have a output layers, right? So there's no hidden layers in that, right? So why? Because you are basically assuming that the features that you are getting at the last layer, which is basically the fully connected layer, you are thinking that the features are basically linearly separable, right? And by assuming that, you are basically trying to classify your data points into different classes, right? But let us assume that even though you have done your deep learning based analysis, that's what we are most of the people are we are doing, right? So while doing the features extraction on your input images or so on data, right, you are coming with this kind of feature, right? So those features may not be still the classes, the features corresponding to different classes, they may not be separable with each other, right? So what we need to do, you can also you can also add some hidden layers here, right? You can also add either here some hidden layers here, so that it can capture some nonlinearity in your data, right? And will give you some good kind of accuracy, right? So you can add even you can add here some hidden layer architecture, right? This basically tells you if one variable basically value of one variable increases with respect to some other variable, we basically call it that they are basically negatively correlated, right? And of course there's less correlation, there's less negative correlation here, and slightly more negative correlation here, and they are basically perfectly negatively correlated. So you might be knowing that the correlation value basically lies from -1 to 1 value. So here you see the value is basically -1, whereas this one, the first one is basically, if you have the perfectly positive correlated, the correlation value will be basically +1, and if they are perfectly negatively correlated, the value becomes -1, right? Otherwise, for other cases, the value will be between -1 to +1, right? So you see you see this you simply write a simple command. So I'm not going for mathematical description once again. This is what is sigma of this rho of x comma y and so on, right? So you can write the mathematical equation, but I will give you the simple approach that if you write this being coming from any domain, you simply write the data frame, which basically your data frame, right? Which you basically the data you read, what's in pandas, what you call data frame, right? So, and then you use this correlation COR command, right, which will gives you the correlation of one variable with respect to other variable, right? So it basically gives you the correlation of each variable with respect to other variable. So you see the diagonal elements. If you see the diagonal elements, tells you that the correlation of price with the price variable, right? So you know the correlation of a variable with respect to itself basically equal to 1, right? So correlation of price versus price is basically 1, right? So you see the age in month, right? So the correlation of what is the correlation of price versus the month, the age of the car, right? So you know that if the car becomes older and older, the price will reduce, right? So if the age of the car will increase, the price definitely will reduce, and that is why they basically follow a negative correlation, right? So you know, see this price and age of the month, basically they follow minus 0.87, which tells you they are basically highly negatively correlated. Even you see this is a kilometer variable, right? So kilometer tells you that how many how much kilometer that a particular car travels, right? So definitely if a car travels a large number of kilometers, then definitely indirectly indicates that car is basically of older type, right? So you see even this price and kilometer, they basically follow a negative correlation. Likewise, if you see the last the last one, which is weight, right? So it tells you the value 0.58. They indicates that they are basically positively correlated. So this particular value tells you the correlation between the weight variable with respect to this price variable, right? So this positive value tells you that the price basically is positively related with the weight. So this it simply tells you, easy to understand that if you increase the weight of the car, definitely sometime the price will also increase. So definitely it tells you the right analysis, right? So likewise, you see how this one variable basically indicates or relates with the, or how much it is correlated with the other variable. If you say what is the lowest number, something like this, right? Automatic, right? And then some other values is like, right? So they are basically, if you say have very less negative or positive value, so that means they are basically they are not that much of correlated, right? So if you wanted to, let us say, if you wanted to predict the missing value in price, right? You have some increase missing value in price, and you wanted to predict those missing values, then you pick up some relationship between price and some, let us say, kilometer, or price maybe with kilometer and price versus age, and then you estimate those missing values. That may be one thing, or what we can do, that you go with the density estimator, right, for this price variable, and then you estimate those missing values, right? Okay. Oh, still so many things are there. So that's what is shown here, right? So basically this graph shown you the age of the month versus this price relation, right? So you can write this set of instructions to execute this particular graph, right? So you have this kind of relationship, right? Let us say assume you have if you have this kind of data set in your hand and you wanted to build a model on top of this variable, right? Price versus age, right? Price become a dependent variable and age in months becomes a independent variable, right? So what kind of model basically you wanted to fit it here? Definitely blindly if you pick up a highly non-linear based model, definitely it may do your job, but that with an extra cost, right? So instead of going for the non-linear based model, better to fit a linear curve here, right? Better to fit a linear curve here, which may do your job, right? So with a simple effort, with a simple solution, you can come up with we can do your job, right? So instead no need to go for a very non-linear model. Here you see in case of, let's say, price versus kilometer, right? So you see they basically if you see they basically follow a slightly non-linear relationship, right? Even though they are related, but they basically follow a slightly non-linear based model. So instead of going for a simple line as a fitting curve, right? So you may increase the order of this polynomial. Instead of going for a first order polynomial, which is basically a line, you go and increase the order of the polynomial for n equal to 2, let us say second order polynomial or third order polynomial, but particularly I believe the second order polynomial, which will do your job here, right? And then so see, by looking the data, we are able to confirm that what kind of model should I use, right? So whether we need to use, we need to go for a linear based model or we need to go for a non-linear based model, right? So if you don't have this, if you don't understand this relationship, if you don't go for this kind of analysis, then definitely you will pick up some maybe highly non-linear curve, right? And then you will turn to a overfitting case, right? Right. And the last slide, I believe this is the last slide, which basically tells you the relationship of each variable with respect to some other variable, right? So you see all this carefully, right? So carefully, and then you see what kind of relationship that the one variable basically follows with respect to some other variables, right? And by looking all these, understanding all this relationship, you can come up with you try to build or you try to develop a model which is your objective, right? So while building any model, right, on top of your data, depending on whatever domain you are coming, right, you are basically getting a data from whichever sources, right? You right, the first task should be you pick up, you try to do some analysis on your data, you try to understand the data, how one variable basically behaves with respect to some other variable, and then based on those inferences, you try to pick up the model, right, which you feel, or try to modify the model, right, try to develop the model that may do your job in a better way, right? Even though you will fail, you try to once again you visit the data, right, try to see the data, and then you do the analysis, right? Oh, that's okay, thank you. So let me take your questions. Oh, it's over. Yeah, very sophisticated topic.
Hello.
Yes.
The participants, if you have any questions, you may directly interact. Sunil sir, namaste.
नमस्ते सर.
Yeah.
सर बहुत सुना है आपके बारे में.
थैंक यू सर. मैंने ये आपका बड़ापन है कि हम लोग जैसे बारे में बोल रहे हैं, because in what way you have, because nowadays the buzzword is data analytics and data science only. So in what way you have covered actually throughout the session, enjoyed a lot. I hope you have, in what way you have presented today's presentation. It is really self-explanatory, and student may not have any doubt. Still, if they have any doubt, then the platform is open to all. If you have any question, the participant, you may share it in the chat box. Otherwise, directly unmute and you may talk to Professor Sunil.
What actually I want.
Sunil sir, you can do one thing now. If possible, kindly stop sharing, na, so that it will be easy for you.
Okay.
You don't mind? Yeah, it's okay.
So the thing is that even whenever actually what I observe many a case that without doing this the data analysis on data, whatever data is there in your hand,
Yes,
students
sir.
don't do basically this data analysis and try to pick up a best model which is available, right? Whether it is ResNet 50 or ResNet whatever model is there, right? And then they try to apply the models on your data, right? So I request all of you, those are basically PhD scholars, right? You do some this ADA analysis on your data, and then that will help you to justify even your model, right? Even it will help you to justify your model, even though you will fail it, but it will give you some other inferences of your data, right? So it's better to do first ADA, and then you go and then you think what kind of model, what and how much complex model you require to basically fit on your data. Basically, that's the motive of this particular this session.
Yes, sir, you rightly pointed out, because without analysis, if the students are ready to apply some algorithm or more concept on it, then at the end of the day, it will be no use.
Even in whatever session that you will basically followed by this session, right? There are machine learning based techniques the professor may be discussing you.
Yes.
Then you just see how the data basically behaves and how they basically selected what kind of model they have to select it. Definitely, they have to understand.
Sir. Any questions, participants? Otherwise, we may stop here. As I mentioned rightly, Sunil sir, it was totally self-explanatory. So that's why most of the questions already covered. What sort of question they raised in their mind? It was resolved to you.
Even I feel this topic is slightly simple, but the important thing is that the message that I wanted to convey is that you need to do EDA before building a model. Otherwise, you have to, if you are strictly picking the model, different models, definitely you will, in one phase, you may be able to come up with the solution, but it requires a lot of way to justify it. So that this EDA will help you to justify your model in a better way. Right. So, that's what this message we wanted to close it. Right.
Thank you, sir. With this, we may stop. Gopal sir, Raghavendra sir is there? That's right. Raghavendra sir. Okay. Yeah. With this, I'm going to stop. First of all, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to, on behalf of JIT University. I'm ready to extend my heartfelt thanks to Professor Sunil ji. Although today is the working day for him, still he can spend, and he, in what way he has presented his today's talk, really no question means sometimes we have to take in 80% positive and 20% negative. So so moreover 80% positive is that, and personally enjoyed a lot. So I can say, I hope what sort of questions in your mind, it was solved by him during his presentation. So personally, I can, on behalf of my participants also, I am very much thankful to you, Professor Sunil sir, because in what way you have delivered, really mind-blowing, I can say. And in future, if the participants or from our side, if any questions, we may disturb you, and I hope you will accept our request and you will guide us with. And thank you, participants, and we are ready to interact with you all in the next session. With this, one ma'am is mentioning something like that. I'm from, just a minute. Yeah. I'm from non-computer science background, very lucid and good. Oh, she has presented in such a way that, although I'm from not non-computer science background, but still in what way you have presented, sir. So it reaches her mind, and that means it's the best appreciation from the participant side to you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So I hope in the coming days once the pandemic will be over, definitely I will see you at GIT University campus. So it
Sure,
is
sure.
it's a one type of invitation at this moment, and once this pandemic will be over, you will get a formal invitation from our good office, and I hope you will accept our request and you will be at the GIT University campus for
Sure,
some
sure,
time.
sure.
Thank
Sure,
you.
sure.
Namaste,
Sure.
sir.
Okay, namaste.
Namaste to all, and we will meet again in the next session. Thank you all.